Jace Carter had survived a lot of bad landings, but this one took the cake. 1 minute, he was cruising through uncharted space, minding his own business, which, might have involved, accidentally, borrowing a few things from a royal treasury. The next, he was plummeting toward a jungle-covered planet that had more teeth than trees. The ship groaned as it skidded across the ground, coming to a stop just shy of a pit filled with what looked like sentient fangs. All right, still alive. Cool. Now, where the hell am I? Jace muttered, unclipping his harness. Before he could even stretch his legs, something moved in the trees. Not just moved, stalked. The kind of slow, deliberate motion that screamed, apex predator. He tensed, hand hovering over his sidearm. Then she stepped out. She was tall. 7 feet easy. Dark, iridescent skin shimmered under the twin moons, long limbs moving with a deadly grace. Her eyes? Black pools of midnight hunger. Her lips? Framed by 2 delicate, venom-tipped fangs. Jace, being the professional idiot he was, took one look at her and grinned. Well, hello there. Don't suppose you're here to welcome me with a fruit basket? She tilted her head. You are human. Yep, last time I checked. He dusted off his jacket, taking a step forward. Name's Jace Carter. Interstellar pilot, part-time charmer, full-time. Mine. Jace blinked. Pardon? She tapped a sleek wrist device, and a holographic contract flickered to life between them. A symbol pulsed, a stamp of ownership. His ship's distress beacon must have triggered some kind of local salvage law. Under widow law, all fallen vessels and their pilots belong to the one who claims them first. You are now declared property of Lady Zarzentha of the Widow clans. Jace frowned. Wait. So, just because I crash-landed I? Yes. Like no discussion? You are mine. To use. To consume. Her voice curled around that last word like a promise. Jace swallowed. Hard. That was a very specific word choice. Now, Jace wasn't dumb. Reckless? Sure. Overconfident? Absolutely. But he knew widow law. Hell, every spacer did. The widows weren't called that for nothing. Their mating habits were legendary, mostly because the male never lived to tell the story. Okay, haha, real funny, Jace said, forcing a chuckle. Listen, Lady Zarzentha. Right, Lady Zarzentha. There's been a tiny mistake. See, humans don't do the whole own thing. I'm more of a freelancer, you know, independent contractor, no long-term commitments, definitely not snack material. Her lips curled into what might have been a smirk. Or a pre-dinner evaluation. You misunderstand. The contract is final. You are mine. And as my property, your use is negotiable. Jace raised an eyebrow. And by negotiable you mean? Zarzentha took a slow step closer, the air between them growing thick. Jace wasn't sure if it was pheromones or the creeping realization that he was now in an alien version of a relationship. Do not fear, human. It will not be immediate, she purred. First, there is a ritual. A bonding period. Okay, that sounded slightly less bad. He could work with bonding. Maybe stall long enough to. It ensures your body is properly prepared for mating. To endure. Jace's brain short-circuited. I'm sorry. Did you say endure? Zarzentha gave a slow nod. Humans are fragile. We must ensure you do not break. Too quickly. Right. Cool. That's a concern. Love that you're thinking ahead, Jace said, taking a cautious step back. And, how long is this preparation phase? Zarzentha tapped her wrist device again. A countdown timer appeared. 3 days. Jace exhaled. 3 days. All right. I can make 3 days work. The timer adjusted. Correction, 3 widow days. The counter jumped to 96 hours. Jace's stomach dropped. 4 human weeks. He stared at her, lips pressing into a thin line. Yeah, we're gonna have to renegotiate this contract. Her eyes gleamed. You are free to attempt escape. Many before you have tried. Jace's gaze flicked to the other crashed ships in the distance. The ones half buried in the jungle. None of them looked like they had successful departures. Zarzentha lifted her chin. You are dismissed to your chambers. Rest well. You will need it. Jace watched as two heavily armored widow guards stepped forward, each looking way too eager to escort their new chew toy. Jace sighed, rubbing his temples. He had really picked the wrong planet to crash on. Jace sat on what he could only assume was a bed, if beds were made of something halfway between silk and spiderwebs. He didn't want to ask what it was spun from. Probably something with too many legs. Maybe former suitors. The guards had dropped him off like luggage and left him to rest. But relaxing wasn't exactly easy when your host was debating whether to date you or digest you. Alright, focus. He needed a plan. Preferably one that ended with him not becoming the main course at an interstellar Black Widow banquet. Step 1, gather intel. Step 2, stall for time. Step 3, don't die. The door hissed open, and Zarzentha entered, moving with that same predatory grace that made Jace's survival instincts scream run while his dumber instincts whispered, but what if? You are restless, she observed. Jace forced a grin. Yeah, I usually like to get to know someone before the whole declared property situation. Maybe start with dinner before I am dinner. Her lips twitched in amusement. Ah. You wish to be courted. Let's call it professional curiosity, he said, leaning back. So, let's talk about this preparation phase. What exactly does that involve? Stretching? Cardio? Emotional support group for previous survivors? Zarzentha tilted her head. You jest, but the conditioning is crucial. Widow mating is intense. Many partners have expired prematurely. Jace cleared his throat. Define expired. She considered. Hearts failing. Bones snapping. The unfortunate case of detachment. Jace blinked. Did you say detachment? Her gaze was unreadable. Some species have fragile parts. His knees pressed together instinctively. Right. That's a new fear unlocked. Zarzentha studied him as if she could already see his vital signs dropping. You need sustenance. Eat. A drone floated in, placing a tray in front of him. Jace looked down. The dish moved. Not to sound ungrateful, but I usually prefer food that's not actively trying to leave the plate. She blinked. It is a delicacy. The larval sacs burst with nutrients upon biting. Jace grabbed a fork and stabbed the nearest wiggling thing. It let out a small shriek. He dropped the fork immediately. I'm good. Running on adrenaline and sheer terror. Zarzentha sighed. Humans are so particular. Humans are alive. I'd like to keep that streak going. She circled him slowly, as if assessing. Then perhaps we must tailor the preparation to your physiology. A test to determine your durability. Jace didn't like the sound of that. Test? What kind of? She clapped her hands. The doors slid open. Two heavily muscled widow males entered. Each was carrying a massive weight slab. Jace exhaled. Oh, we're doing this, huh? You will endure basic widow training. We must determine if you can withstand the strain. Jace eyed the slabs. You know, I usually lift drinks, not boulders. The guards dropped the slabs at his feet. Begin, Zarzentha ordered. Jace grabbed the first one. It didn't budge. Great, he muttered. Now I get humiliated before I'm devoured. Zarzentha leaned closer. A widow requires a mate who does not break too easily. Jace squared his shoulders. All right. If it was a strength test she wanted, it was a strength test she'd get. He planted his feet, gripped the slab, and, with a strangled noise that was half grunt, half prayer, lifted. His arms screamed. His spine filed a formal complaint. But the damn thing moved. The guards nodded approvingly. Zarzentha's gaze flickered with something unreadable. Jace dropped the weight, gasping. Ha! See? Not fragile. Zarzenta stepped closer. Perhaps. She brushed a clawed finger along his jaw. But can you keep up? Jace wasn't sure if that was a threat or an invitation. Either way, he was in deep. Jace lay sprawled on the floor, limbs feeling like overcooked noodles. Widow, training, was one hell of a workout. Apparently, lifting boulders was just the warm-up. The real test involved dodging razor-clawed drones, sprinting up vertical walls, and enduring simulated atmospheric pressure changes. I hate everything, he muttered. Zarzenta loomed over him, looking far too entertained. You performed adequately, Jace wheezed. Adequately? Lady, I almost died twice. She considered. Only once, technically. The drone venom was not lethal, merely paralytic. Comforting, he groaned. She knelt beside him, eyes studying him as if assessing the market value of a slightly damaged product. Your endurance is promising. But you remain fragile. Yeah, humans tend to like their bones inside their bodies. It's a cultural thing. Zarzenta hummed thoughtfully, then reached out. Jace tensed as her fingers traced his shoulder, sending an involuntary shiver through him. You are warm, she murmured. Yeah, it's called body heat. Comes standard. She tilted her head. Intriguing. Widow males are cold-blooded. They require external heat to remain active. You generate your own. Jace frowned. Wait. Are you saying I'm, what, a walking space heater? She ran a claw lightly down his chest, feeling the way his muscles tensed. Perhaps. We shall test this further. Jace cleared his throat. Define test. Zarzenta stood, her silhouette framed against the dim glow of the chamber's biolights. Follow. Jace had a bad feeling about this, but the alternative was arguing with a 7-foot-tall apex predator who considered him both a challenge and a potential snack. He followed. The next chamber was unexpected. Unlike the cold, sterile training halls, this room was lush. The air was thick with humidity, the walls lined with glowing flora. In the center, a massive, cushioned platform pulsed with ambient heat. Jace narrowed his eyes. Is this a sauna? Zarzenta gestured. Lie down. Jace hesitated. I feel like this is either a trap or the weirdest seduction attempt I've ever encountered. She arched a brow. You wish to flee? Jace sighed. That's the thing about being declared property, kind of limits my options. Still, he climbed onto the heated platform, exhaling as the warmth sank into his exhausted muscles. Zarzenta settled beside him. The mattress shifted, conforming to her shape in a way that felt dangerously intimate. You are tense, she noted. Yeah, funny thing about being held against your will, tends to stress a guy out. She reached over, clawed hands gliding over his forearm. I do not wish you harmed. If you are to endure, you must recover properly. Jace eyed her. So, this is recovery? She nodded. Widow males require external warmth. They rest in shared chambers to absorb heat from their mates. Your body provides sufficient warmth. Jace snorted. Great. I've been reduced to a living electric blanket. Zarzenta smirked. A valuable one. Jace wasn't sure whether to feel flattered or very concerned. But as exhaustion settled over him, he had to admit, being wrapped in warmth, beside a deadly alien who might or might not eat him, was strangely comfortable. And maybe, just maybe, he could use that to his advantage. Jace woke up feeling too comfortable, which was immediately suspicious. The heat from the platform had settled deep into his muscles, leaving him relaxed, a state he absolutely should not be in, given that he was still technically alien property. Zarzenta was still beside him, watching with unreadable eyes. You remained asleep for many hours, she observed. Jace sat up slowly. Yeah, that happens when you force a guy through a nightmare obstacle course. She reached out, tracing a finger along his arm. Not in a romantic way, more like she was inspecting him. Your resilience is remarkable. Jace smirked. What can I say? Humans are full of surprises. Zarzentha studied him. Perhaps. Then she lifted her wrist device. With a few taps, holographic data projected into the air. His vitals, strength metrics, stress responses. Jace's stomach dropped. Wait. Were you tracking me? Of course. You put me through all that just to collect data? To ensure compatibility. Jace ran a hand down his face. Right. Should have figured. First aid, alien style, dodge death traps, bench press a small planet, then get turned into a space heater. Zarzentha's expression was unreadable. You have adapted faster than expected. But one final test remains. Jace exhaled. Of course there's a final test. Because why would I ever get a break? She stood. The widow bond must be acknowledged. If you truly wish to reject it, you must challenge my claim. Jace blinked. I can challenge it? Zarzentha nodded. A duel. If you win, you are free. Jace considered this. He wasn't a fighter. But he was fast, unpredictable, and very, very good at not dying. All right, he said. What's the catch? She smirked. If you lose, you submit. Fully. Jace's brain short-circuited. Define fully. Her gaze burned. Completely. Irrevocably. Until the bond is consummated. Jace swallowed. Hard. You know what? Let's fight. The challenge was set. The widow duel would be unlike anything Jace had ever faced. He had one chance to outsmart an apex predator and win his freedom. Because losing wasn't an option.